Yes, we're back. Roshfooco watches and things. And today let's take a look at the Rolex Explorer 2 reference 216570. Before we do that, let's just take a quick little retrospective into the backstory of the Explorer 2. First issued in 1971 with a reference 1655. The Explorer 2 was originally a four-handed watch with a slave 24-hour hand. We'll speak about what its modern function is. So it was slave. You couldn't independently set it, and it was an AM PM hand, because apparently the Explorer 2 was specifically created for the global spelunking fraternity, which is not a phrase I'd ever thought I'd hear myself say. For those people who spend a lot of time in caves and therefore don't know whether it's day or night. Interesting profession, not one for me. Anyway, this is the fourth iteration, this 216570, first released in 2011. Let's take a quick look at this one. Whereas the original was a 39, this is a 42mm case. I'm getting just a flick under 50 lug end to lug end. It's 12.5mm thick, not including Cyclops, and it is a 21mm lug opening. Obviously this is this is my own watch. It gets worn a fair bit when I'm back in the UK, as I am now. It's not one that I take with me when I go different places to do different things, but it has got a lot of wear in the last few years, but it's still in incredibly good shape. It's got those polished flanks, brushed to the tops of the lugs, and of course that radially brushed, fixed stainless steel bezel with the 24-hour markings. Same as always with the Rolex, a completely sterile case back, but inside is the caliber 3187, 48-hour power reserve. Obviously COSC, but because it is a superlative chronometer, that kind of tightens the specification from a -4 to +6, which is a COSC standard. Tightens it into a -2 +2. Certainly for the modern calibers, perhaps it doesn't go back quite as far as 2011 and this 3187, but certainly the modern superlative chronometer calibers from Rolex are tightened into -2 +2. But of course this one does have that Paraflex shock resistance system and a parachrome hairspring for anti-magnetic properties, so of course it's going to be not only durable and accurate, also can withstand different pressures and stresses upon the movement, whether that be a physical stress or a magnetic stress, something like that. So a very kind of robust and hard-working watch, although still has the refinement of, of a Rolex sports model that requires, a fair investment these days for one of these. Water resistance 100 meters. Can we get into the dial a bit? Beautiful stark white, or polar white as people have named this one. Polar white dial with interesting bold black outlines for the indices and the hands. Indeed, often termed as an oversized or maxi dial, because those individual indexes and the handset are a bit bigger, easier to read than other Rolex sports models. And of course, because you've got that white dial, they've decided to frame them all in a black outline. Again, that's a departure from the usual white gold settings and outlines for the dial work on modern Rolex references. And then, as you can see there, just kind of hidden or underneath the Cyclops there is the orange GMT hand, because of course on later Explorer references, gone is the slave. Is the slave 24-hour hand that just shows AM PM. This one is this one, of course, set the GMT hand. And then individually move the hour hand to your current time zone. Of course, that's also going to be the way to change the date. There's not a quick set date function through the crown, but if you do, you can flip the hour hands, and if you flip it around, obviously, then that's gonna change the date. So it's kind of by proxy a quicker setting date function. Of course, hand winding through that signed Rolex crown. All of those indexes in the handset, of course, are filled with Rolex's proprietary luminescent material. Let's have a quick look at that. Yeah, and that glows really well. Pretty functional, although as you can see, there is no luminescent material on the 24-hour markings on the bezel, so I guess you just have to memorize those if you're using the GMT hand in the dark. You know, I'm not sure why you would be doing that. You'll probably be looking at the main handset for that, but decent lume, of course. Rolex's Chroma-Light. Oyster cases we looked at before. Yes, it is a little scuffed up because this one's been worn a fair bit. 904L stainless steel, so oyster steel, if you will. Rolex's own metal blend for their steel. It's a pretty flat case, is one thing I would say. A little bit of curvature with the lugs, but it's pretty flat, and at 50mm one end to the other, it does sit pretty flat. And of course, we've spoken about that fixed bezel. Essentially, the handset do the same job as a GMT Master 2, but it doesn't have the bi-directional bezel. It doesn't have a movable bezel at all. So 2 time zones on this, the potentiality for 3 time zones when using the GMT Master 2. When you're reading the handset, you're reading the GMT hand off the dial and off the bezel as well. This one only 2 time zones, but that's fine. One thing I would say is can we try and zoom into that? It's got that silly Rolex rehort with Rolex, 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 Rolex. Yeah, we know it's a Rolex. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that's over the top. If you're gonna criticise lesser brands for having their logo appear too much on a watch or put on places that you don't particularly like, then I'm going to throw the Rolex rehort into that as well. Don't need it, chaps. It's overkill. But having said that, bar the ridiculous rehort and the pretty flat case. In fact, speaking of the case, let's just put it on for a second. 7-inch wrist, of course, for your orientation. There it is. Let's zoom out a bit. That's what I was saying. It sits a little flat. I wouldn't fancy this 42 by 50 on a wrist. Much smaller than mine, to be honest. 6 3/4, 6.5. You might be struggling. Obviously depends on you and how you like to wear your watch. But 50 lug to lug is getting up there for what I like. But it does wear well. It's relatively slender, so it's not too big and bulky on the wrist. Does come on a bracelet. At the moment, I've got this on a really, really comfortable leather strap. Actually, it's a beautiful leather strap. I'm still very torn with that excessive kind of fashion stitching on it. I like I like the orange as it matches the orange accents on the dial, but do we just need that? Probably. It's a 21mm lug, so again, like most of you, you know, my strap box is not overflowing with 21mm straps, so you know, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it's a beautifully comfortable piece of leather. It really is lovely. I'm not sure where I got it from. It's been in there for a while, but yeah, it's wearing really well. So just to wrap up, Rolex Explorer 2 216570, really functional, really hard wearing. Actually, I don't baby this one at all. Yeah, you have to invest a little bit to get a watch like this. Obviously, to be honest, I prefer kind of cheaper watches, but when I do have the opportunity, when I'm back in the UK and I open the safe and put this one on, then yeah, looking good, feeling good. Anyway, so Rolex Explorer 216570, roshfooco watches and things, and I'm out.